What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Wash Kings podcast, the show where a couple of cousins talk hoops, the NBA, and keep you updated on everything you need to know about your Denver Nuggets. I'm your host, Cam Kennedy, and today we're doing a three-man weave with Pat Kennedy and Matthew Hinnon and myself. Boys, we have some Nuggets news finally to talk about. How are we doing?
Good. It's about damn time, as Lizzo once said.
It's about damn time. Or LeBron after the second
Yep.
or the first title. Yeah.
Yeah, I was starting to get nervous there for a minute.
I thought maybe we were heading to no answers post draft. Like we were going to go into the draft with nothing, with no clue of what was going on. But we got some answers, and that's what we're going to really talk about today. But if you're listening and you're a Nuggets fan, do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe button. Would mean a lot to us. Definitely help us out. We're trying to get this thing up and rolling, and we're having a lot of fun with it. So we would appreciate that. But guys, yeah, we're in full off-season mode. Trades flying everywhere. We have the draft tomorrow, which is going to be probably crazy. I feel like we're just shaping up to be in a really big offseason this summer. There's a couple of deals that happen that we can go over, but also we need to talk about a little bit how the Thunder just won the NBA Finals. We haven't been on since that happened. We were on last week on a show. And the Pacers, I think, were down 3-2 at that point. But the Thunder win the title, much deserved. They were really good team. That defense was legit. Halliburton goes down, absolutely tragic. But Bill Simmons said this, and I want to take it because I kind of think this is true. But when I look back at this playoff run, I'm definitely going to be thinking about the champion, which is the Thunder, but it's also going to be in the same sentence as the Pacers. So, like, the Thunder aren't going to be, like, the main thing you think about. Like, you're truly going to think about what the Pacers did because it was pretty magical. It was pretty special. It was a lot of fun to watch. And it really did feel like a bummer that it ended the way it did because it was the setup for that Game 7 was about as cool as a setup can be. And for it to just end like that, 7 minutes in, Halliburton's going off, 9 points, hits 3 3-pointers already. He deserved to be out there. He should have been out there. And it got taken away from us, from him, and from the Pacers fans. So quite devastating for them. But congrats to the Thunder nonetheless. They deserve it. They were great. But what are your guys' thoughts on the finals? Thunder winning, Halliburton, Pacers, whatever.
Yeah, you do wonder how that game would have shaped out if Halliburton was able to play the entire game and not go through that unfortunate injury. But you know what? It was a great series nonetheless. Went to 7 games. Would have liked to see the Pacers come out on top as much as it does make the Nuggets look better that they did lose to the ultimate champions. But hats off to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were the best team all year, best team defensively. They have the MVP, as much as I hate to say it. But you know what? I mean, the Nuggets were right there. They're 1 game away. I mean, that game, you think about that Game 5 that we sold. But
just like
that's
the Pacers will on that Game 5 that they lost to. Same
exactly.
Same exact script.
Yeah, the same exact script, which is actually crazy, of the order of games and which teams won that. It's like eerily similar. And I know I've said it before, but the Pacers always remind me of like the Nuggets of the East.
Nuggets East. Matt, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I said last episode, the Thunder are just they're that team this year, and they deserve the credit. And aside from SGA, they have good guys on their squad. And as it pains us to say, as Nuggets fans and NBA fans, they're going to be a good team for the next couple of years, which is just how it's going to shape up. The West is going to be incredibly difficult, especially for the Nuggets, and I think we've got a lot of really good basketball ahead of us. And watching Halliburton go down, man. Dude, I remember sitting there watching it with you, Cam, and I was like, yeah, he away, right after it happened, I was like, yeah, he tore the Achilles. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But yeah, solid season for the Thunder, and they deserve the credit for getting the championship. So
I will say, like, my respect for this Pacers team could not be any higher. Just everything that they went through, all the crazy comebacks, the Halliburton game winners, like, it was really, really fun to watch that team. And I think all of us before the playoffs did not think that they were this kind of team, that they were going to be, you know, a game away from winning the finals kind of team. And they proved us wrong, and they deserved to be there. And they showed that they were the second best team this year, maybe the first if some things went their way, if it wasn't for some, you know, injury luck and things like that. But my respect for Halliburton for the Pacers could not be higher. But at least we got a good finals. It was an ending of a, you know, the bummer. It was a bummer ending, but at least we got a good finals for 6-7 games. So, anyways, we'll get past that. Congrats to the Thunder. We got some trades to talk about. We haven't. Last time we were on, these trades did not happen. So first, we're going to go over the just real quick. We're not going to touch on these too much because our main topic is, of course, the press conference today with Josh Kroenke and Wallace and Tenzer. But the KD trade. So KD was sent to Houston for Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the 10th pick this year, and a bunch of second-round picks. I think Houston's going to be pretty damn good next year, man. I think this was a great deal for the Rockets. I know some people thought that this was too much of a haul for KD, and I know he's a little bit unreliable. He's a little bit older, but I think he's exactly what the Rockets needed, someone that can just take shots in the fourth quarter, be the number one shooting option, and they got to keep Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, Reed Shepard, some of those young guys that you know, they're going to really rely on into the future. So I thought this was a really good move. As it concerns the Nuggets, I am not that worried about it, but for the rest of the Western Conference, I think they're really going to compete. They were just the second seed this last year, and now they just added Kevin Durant, who even at this old age, still one of the best scorers in the league. So if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm a little bit more concerned from the Nuggets' perspective than you are, Cam, just because the West.
Sure.
I mean, the West is just rejuvenating, especially some of these teams getting some big time players. I agree with you though. I mean, the Rockets definitely won this trade. Yeah, interested to see what your thoughts were, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the classic, you know, from the outside perspective, it's like, oh, that's a big haul, you know, whatever they want to say about it, but it's kind of a classic, what team needs what in what scenario, and
Perfect fit.
I think it was for KD. I think it's a perfect fit. We all know he wanted out of Phoenix, and kind of like we've seen the writing on the wall for a lot of his departures from certain teams and
Last few years, yeah.
from the last few years for sure. But you know, like you said, Cam, one of the better scorers in the league still, and I think they'll really help. I think he'll really help out the young Houston squad for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just he'll be surrounded by defense, bunch of guys running around like their heads are cut off. Like that's just how Houston plays. Great defensively. You know, Thompson's going to be taking another step up. I think it's a great fit. I'm not the biggest KD guy because of all the turmoil last couple years. It all started when he went to Golden State, to be honest. But he kind of seems to be toxic wherever he goes. But he wanted to be in Texas, it seemed like, because he indicated that he wanted to be in San Antonio or Houston. And he ended up with the team that I think is a pretty good fit. So we'll see what happens with that. Last night, Drew Holiday was traded to the Portland Trailblazers. This was weird and surprising, but not from the Celtics standpoint, but from Portland's standpoint, because they got rid of Anthony Simons and 2 second-round picks. So they gave the Celtics picks and Anthony Simons, who's a younger, probably better player at this point and makes less money. Drew Holiday, very good player, going to be like a Hall of Famer and all that, but he's old and he's going to be making a lot of money the next few years. That was kind of a weird one. We don't have to go over that one too much unless you guys really have thoughts on it. But yeah,
I mean,
so
just seems like, I mean, Boston's kind of blown up their team, especially with they're going to have a down year, especially without Tatum, another guy who tore his Achilles in the playoffs.
I think just a gap year for sure, and we're gonna, you know, I'm not that interested in the CJ McCollum went to the Wizards, so we're not really going to mention that. Kind of just another weird one, whatever. But a few hours ago, Kristaps Porzingis was traded to the Hawks in a 3-team deal that saw Tingus Pingus and a second-round pick go to Atlanta. Boston got Georges Niang and a second-rounder, and Brooklyn got Terrence Mann and Atlanta's number 22 pick draft went to the Nets. The Nets, by the way, have 5 draft picks in the first round this year, which is crazy. But like Pat mentioned, these deals were not surprising for Boston for Porzingis and Holiday because they were desperately trying to get under the second apron. And this is something that we'll probably talk about here with the Nuggets too, because it was brought up with the Kroenkes and stuff. But if I'm going to pull up real quick, kind of a graph to kind of explain the second apron a little bit. And this is the best way that I found. The Ringer put this out, and I thought this was a good a visual. So on the left here, for people that are listening on Spotify and Apple, $127 million is the minimum a team the minimum team salary. That means that teams have to be paying people above $127 million. The salary cap is $141 million. The $172 million mark is the tax level. So anything above that, teams are going to be paying tax on it. Which is funny. The Thunder just won the championship and they weren't paying any tax this year, which shows how young they are. And that's pretty crazy. But the first apron kicks in, and a lot of teams are under this, including the Nuggets, which is at $179 million. The first apron includes, and the penalties for that, going over that, are no sign-in trades, no trade exceptions, and no taking back money in trades. $190 million is where the second apron kicks in. That's what Boston is over. That's what Phoenix is over. I think they might be under it now with KD, or they might still be over it. But I'm not too sure.
They're under it.
They're under it.
Yeah.
They got So that's what Boston got under in the last 24 hours, trading Holiday and Porzingis. So the second apron penalties are all first apron restrictions. So the ones I already read. No aggregating contracts in trades. No trading cash. Limited sign and trade rules. And your 2032 first round pick is frozen if you finish above the second apron. So it is detrimental to teams trying to make moves, the roster, the limitations. There's just so many things that you can't do if you're in that second apron. Yeah, you might be guaranteed a pretty good team if that's the case, like Boston was, but the writing was on the wall. They did not want to be there anymore. They're going to be in a gap year with Tatum being out with the Achilles. So unfortunately, a team that just won a title last year had to get rid of Porzingis and Holiday, two really good players and guys that were huge pieces of that core that helped them win the championship. So the second apron era that we're in is pretty wild. This new CBA is no joke. But I thought Boston did a really good job in these deals actually to get under that apron. And we'll see what they still do. I've heard rumors that Jaylen Brown, Derek White, guys like that might still be on the block. Like, you never know what they're going to do. But championship windows are small. And I think you guys could speak on this a little bit too. But the Nuggets getting a championship in this era, in this 2020s era, this parity era, is actually really freaking special, man, because the windows are so short. It's so fragile. We saw it with Halliburton and the Pacers, how close you can get, but how that can be taken away from you. Boston thought they're going to go back to back. That can be taken away from you. So I feel like that can help us all feel a little bit more appreciative about what the Nuggets did 2 years ago. And hopefully we can get back to it. But let's just go into our segment one. Let's talk about the press conference today. It's a little bit unusual what they're going to be doing with these two hires that they made. It's not traditional GM or anything. They didn't even name a GM, but they named two vice presidents sharing basically the GM role. So that's John Wallace and Ben Tenzer. What were your guys' initial, just like we don't know these guys. We've never seen them really talk. What's your vibe? What's your feel for Tenzer? What's your feel for Wallace after watching that press conference?
Yeah. My initial reactions to the move yesterday, before seeing the presser today, I didn't like it. I don't know. Just the idea of having two guys as the GM role is just kind of like weird, and
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Doesn't sit right with me, and it still doesn't sit right with me after watching the presser today. I don't know. I mean, there's a reason when you look at hierarchies of things, there's a reason there's not two people named the president of the United States. It's just, I don't know. I could see it kind of blowing up in a sense, but after watching the presser today, sounds like these two, like the skill sets, Kroenke emphasized that they kind of complement each other. That was one of the buzzwords that he kept using, just like the way that these two complement each other. And I think he's trying to make up for, in past years, obviously with Booth and Malone, guys kind of butting heads, people who have big egos. So I think he brought in, obviously Tenzer's an internal hire, somebody who's been with the system for so long. And John Wallace, another guy who's just has a lot of connections. And so I think their skill sets overall, I mean, it does make sense that these two would communicate well, but I still don't like the move overall.
Well, you could consider Wallace an internal hire in some ways. He was with the Nuggets for 3 years, was with Minnesota these past 3 years with Tim Conley. He's coming back. We obviously root for these guys, but yeah, Matt, what was your initial reactions to this decision?
I mean, my initial reaction was the first thing that I saw pop up on my phone was Ben Tenzer. that was the first name that came up, and I think I was driving at the time, and I thought, oh god.
Like,
I
that's it, really?
like
After all these
I
weeks?
kind of thought, I was like, oh man, like really, yeah. After all that,
After all that?
um,
Cat.
Shout out,
and
Cat.
shout out, Cat. Just why, I guess, was my biggest thing. Like, why did Kroenke feel the need to do that? Was he really taking the time necessary? And then I figured out that Wallace was brought in as well. And then I think my tone shifted a little bit. I think I kind of thought, oh, well, if they're working in collaboration, if they're, two halves of one brain kind of, and I think DNVR touched on that as well. Shout out to those
It's a
guys.
good way to
But
think about it. Yeah.
yeah, kind of if they're going to work in collaboration like that, Wallace is kind of more of the player talent acquisition type of GM, and then Ben Tenzer kind of works his magic behind the scenes, and
Like a
definitely
project manager.
kind of like a
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
to give
smart.
Tenzer his due diligence and his flowers, man. He's worked he's worked for the organization for 20 years. He's done almost
And in
everything
every job in the front office, right?
every
I was gonna
job.
say he's worked really close with the front office in the last recent years and
So
was interim GM.
Right. So
Right.
he knows, how these things work. He knows the personnel in the building. I just worry, my biggest worry with these two guys is, do they have enough pull outside of the organization? It seems like the Nuggets do a lot of stuff with mainly one team, and the Timberwolves. Like, it's kind of weird to see, with Tim Conley going, a little bit of back and forth, and
David
uh,
Adelman.
and David Adelman for sure. Like, that situation's a little weird. And then to have
Right.
Wallace brought back from Tim Connolly's staff in Minnesota is just, it looks a little weird from the outside, but
Yeah.
I want to put my faith in those two guys. They're young, but they're also really smart. Wallace is a really smart guy. Tenzer hasn't gotten to this point by just doing, F all, basically. He's done his due diligence.
Hmm.
So, we'll kind of see where it goes, but that's, my
Yeah.
biggest thing is, do they have enough pull from outside the organization?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we heard today, I think, from Adam Mars on DMBR that they did talk to other candidates. Towards the end of their show, they said that. So they did do that due diligence from according to him. They did look at other options. My initial reaction to it was kind of similar to you guys. It felt like just internal hires, hiring guys that are the cheapest options, putting them into positions they've never had before, and that's tricky when you have a guy like Nikola Jokic in his prime, best player on the planet, right? And your window is now, your championship window is now. And then the John Wallace thing, I was like, okay, I don't know much about this guy. And then we learned more and we heard more. Um, People describe him as a rising star in this role, that he could be a guy that's going to be good at this someday, or immediately. You never know. But this was a point that was brought up in DMVR too on that show too. Tim Conley, when they hired him, was a hire that was like, wow, like what? Like, this is random. Who is this guy? First time hire, whatever. And it took Tim a long time and a lot of mistakes to get to the point where he got to now he's a great executive, great president of ops. But it took him a long time. So that was concerning to me. We're entrusting 3 new hires into some really important positions, including David Adelman. I believe in Adelman, but this is his first time being a head coach. We saw him do it, but he's going to be handling an 82 game season now. And now we have 2 guys running the GM spot, but aren't actually the GM. They're VPs of whatever they were called. And those are 3 big positions. A lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure, man. So like they gotta nail this, and this is the time that they're in, and this time period is going to be fragile. So, we could talk a little bit more about the press conference now. But yeah, we kind of hit all the things here. Kroenke even mentioned it today that this is an unorthodox approach, but the Nuggets are definitely betting on that potential that Wallace is going to be a really good basketball executive down the line, and that Tenzer was able to be stable and help the organization during that time where Booth got fired over the last few months. So harmony, I'm going to use that word right away. Harmony was a word that came up a lot. You know, they don't think things went very smooth this past few years. They thought there was a lot of chaos, and they want things to go a little bit more smooth. And some fans might worry about who's really in charge in this case, or whatever. But maybe this is something that's going to be complicated down the line too. I hope not. But Kroenke did say that both will be filling in that GM role. As we mentioned, they're both going to be answering the calls, which is kind of weird. They're both going to be working with free agents, trades, and contract stuff, all this is just so weird and unorthodox. I don't really know what to make of it. But I don't know if you guys felt like this, but when I was watching the press conference, like the media guys would be saying, they'd have to say who they were talking to before their question. And it was like asking three guys the same thing, or they would single one of them out. They would say, this one's for Ben and Josh, or this one's for John and Josh, or whatever the case was. I don't know. Did you guys notice that when you're watching it at all? It kind of felt like they were talking to all people, but they weren't really sure which was above who or whatever. But they obviously know Kroenke's above them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It was weird. Like they'd be like, whoever can answer this one, or they'd be like, Ben or John, whoever wants to answer this one first. It's just like you said, it's unorthodox, and you mentioned like the keyword harmonize, like you're trying to make up for problems that you've had in the past, and you're trying to clean up some of the things and take advantage of Jokic's prime. I don't think an unorthodox approach is the answer for something like that. I mean, I don't know. That
better work.
was that was a weird part of the presser.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah, for sure.
I want to touch on. I just thought it was interesting. I don't want to say. I mean, to be fair, Josh did kind of shut down he was the one that said unorthodox, not unnatural, or I can't remember what the other word was.
I think Ryan Blackburn said abnormal, and then he was like, "Oh, that's an interesting word. I would say it's unorthodox."
Yeah,
I would say it's
which
abnormal.
is like the same.
It's
same
both.
thing.
Yeah,
it's the same. It's the same
yeah,
thing.
I was like, oh, okay.
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
but I want to kind of touch on how quickly. I mean, he shut that down like right away.
Yeah, I think it's like the connotation. Like the connotation of each word. Abnormal has more of a negative connotation. Unorthodox has more of like a
neutral.
It's got a better.
view.
It's got a better vibe.
It's got a better ring to it. It's like for his end.
Yeah, it was just a little interesting to hear that, to hear his wording. But then I look at the rest of the press conference, and honestly, back to all the other press conferences Josh has done, and he's kind of bad with words, to be completely honest with you. He's said some stuff that's like, why? Like, why say that? And
I wonder if there's some unpreparedness, or like I can wing this and it'll be all right.
Yeah. I think there's some I can wing it and it'll be all right situation. But I mean, the big elephant in the room that I'm sure you'll get to in a minute.
Oh
is
yeah.
Kind of the biggest thing I'm touching on in terms of how Josh kind of fronts those things. Other than that, I thought John and Ben did a great job in their press.
I was impressed with them
talking about what their plan was and how they're going to execute it, and how I wish they sat side by side, because it felt like they wanted to kind of hug each other the whole time. Like, we're in this to like put the arm around the other and be like, we're in this together. And I know Ben Tenzer pressed that a lot, is saying, I'm going to work with John. And I think he gave, especially on the player personnel side of things, I think he gave John more of the lead on that, and said, I'm going to support him and what he, what his thought process is, and then kind of vice versa on each respective playing field.
Right.
So we'll see.
It seemed like I don't think these guys, who knows, like we just got to hear them speak for the first time today. I don't think I've listened to them speak before this, but it doesn't seem like they have like egos or narratives that they're trying to do. I think like they really are into this collaboration idea, and that they're bought into this, and this is what maybe the Kroenkes wanted, is this kind of collaboration.
I think because they're new, and then there's a lot of pressure on them as well. Like, you're new. This is a new situation for you. Although Ben Tenzer was like, I felt comfortable. Surprisingly, I felt comfortable when I sat in the chair. It's like, great.
But maybe they don't believe in Tenzer's basketball mind. Like they don't believe in
Right.
his basketball evaluation, how he scouts, those kinds of things. So maybe they're like, hey, you did excellent in this front office role, project management, getting things where they need to be, the money, this or that or whatever. And maybe they're like, but we need to bring someone in that's a talent evaluator, a connector. It sounds like Wallace is connected well in the league. It sounds like he did a great job in Minnesota, and we keep hearing the rising star thing that keeps being put on him.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe that was the idea. It was like the two brain thing, like you said. Like, what if we just combine these two? You focus on this, Tenzer. You focus on this, and maybe we can make something together. That's going to be good for this new CBA and for the rest of Jokic's career, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I one of the questions that was asked is how are they going to handle disagreements? And I think the way that Ben answered it, he said,
Yeah,
disagreements are healthy. And I
right.
mean, the way that you work through a disagreement is by working through it and coming out with a decision collaboratively. So, I mean,
It's better than Booth and Malone did, right?
exactly. Like
Collaboration.
Love
So
that.
that's the silver lining, and I think that's obviously what Kroenke was looking for. Just somebody like two people that didn't have egos. Obviously, he wanted to keep Tens around, but not have him as the main head of the ship in the GM
right.
role. So, I mean, as much as I don't like the role, I think there is a lot of good silver linings with
I
the collaboration
yeah,
piece, and like you guys like have we said like the two brains piece, which
right.
might be really valuable, and I really do hope it works out.
It
And
could
I
work.
do see, yeah, I
It
do
could work.
see it working out, and I
It could,
really
and we
do.
want it. We want it to work, right?
We
We're
want it
of
Exactly.
to work.
course we do. Of course we do.
That's why
We
we're
don't want.
talking
Yeah,
ourselves.
that's why we're talking about it.
Yeah,
That's why we're here with like very few people listening. Because we care about this stuff, right?
Mhm.
So,
If you've made it
and
20
listen,
minutes into the show, clap yourself on
God
the
help you.
pat
God
yourself
help
on
you.
the back, and God help you.
We appreciate it. And if you're here this long, you might as well throw a like and subscribe.
yeah,
Go,
doesn't
come
hurt.
on, go chuck us a follow on all the socials as well while you're at it. But yeah, guys, I mean, I liked hearing them speak. I did. It made me feel better about some of this stuff. Like from what I've learned, what I've heard on podcasts, what I've read about some of like Wallace, especially, it made me feel good to have an outside perspective come in. There was questions that he was asked about at the end. Adam Mares asked him about Minnesota owning the Nuggets, and he didn't really dive that much into it. But it made me think, like, yeah, like he knows he was in the with the Timberwolves the last 3 years. He knows exactly what they thought to exploit for the Nuggets. So I think his perspective coming in is like, well, this is what we did to you guys to try to, take you down a notch. And they did that very successfully. So I like that this is at least somewhat of outside perspective, or that he was gone from the organization for 3 years. So he can come back ready to go with, the rest of Jokic's prime. But I think Wallace said some really good stuff about knowing that Jokic is a generational talent, that he's in his prime, but that he also mentioned this a lot, that they need to get more depth. He mentioned that the West is young and it's deep and it's athletic, and that they need to be as healthy as they can be come playoff times. He used the word margins a lot. That was thrown around a lot, which makes me think that this offseason will not be crazy for the Nuggets. You never know. But if they're talking about adding guys on the margins, that really means like the Bruce Browns, like the mid-level exception guys, and the minimum contracts, But he also talked about the need for more shooting, some more defensive stuff, but he also talked about the internal growth for Strother, P. Watt, guys like that. But he seemed like at the crux of this, it seemed like he knew what was at stake for the Nuggets for the next few years with a player like Jokic. So that made me feel good, at least, that he understands the moment, he understands what this means, and that they're going to take full advantage of it if they can. Hopefully this is the right call. But if you have no more thoughts on Tenzer and Wallace, we can go to kind of the big, buzzy, controversial part of the press conference.
Yeah, just real quick, like you said,
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like they're going to make any major moves, other than maybe some
Doesn't seem
sort
like
of like veteran free agents. Although, I mean, even if there was like some sort of potential thing that came across their their desk on a given day, I think each of those guys would be timid to make a big move this early on.
Yeah.
Which I mean, which could hurt you or could save them. And like we've said before, I don't think that we need to necessarily run it back with the same group. I think that
Right.
we tried doing that last year, and if anything, it might hurt us this year.
If it was the right move, I guarantee they would look into it. But I wonder, this was the other thing I was going to mention earlier when we talked about the trades, like Portland doing that. That doesn't seem like it makes sense at all, right? I thought when I saw that, maybe the Nuggets have assets that we think are negative and that teams wouldn't want, but other teams would take on for various reasons, whatever that may be. They like this or that or whatever, like MPJ, we think can be a negative asset sometimes. To someone else, that might be someone that they're really looking for. Šarić, we think no way anybody would want to take on that $5.5 million. He sucked. He didn't even play last year, but it's an expiring contract. People can buy him out, add cap space. Zeke Naji, same thing. Maybe this is a project guy that we can take here. He needs a change of scenery. So like and teams are stupid. I think teams are stupid sometimes. And even if we think they're negative assets, other teams won't think that in some cases. So it's possible that they get slid something on their desk that's like, oh, we need to look into this. Like this can be a real move that pushes us further, pushes the needle. But let's get into the Kroenke controversial quote that was going out and making its runs on social media today. Let's talk about it. He took the mic at the press conference and he unintentionally gave us a really uncomfortable soundbite.
Do you have the quote?
I have the quote.
Okay.
Or essentially what it was. He said going into the second apron is not necessarily something that we're scared of, but if the wrong person gets hurt, I never want to have to contemplate trading number 15. It was something like that. I think I don't know if I exactly had the word for word. If you have it, you can read it. But
well, just he says the wrong person gets injured very quickly. You're in a scenario that I never want to have to contemplate, and that's trading number 15. We're very conscious. We're very conscious of that pushing forward. Really,
he said that in response to the new CBA, the second apron, all the cap sheet stuff, and it was unprovoked. It doesn't really make sense either. If somebody got injured, why would now you have to think about trading Jokic? I think this was obviously an accident, not something he meant to say. If he could take it back, he would, I'm sure. But he could have just said something like, put us in a bad spot or back us into a corner. Saying trade and Jokic in the same sentence out loud into a microphone as one of the owners or the faces of the Nuggets is a rough look. I guess when I first heard that, I was listening to it live, and I was like, it did catch my ear, but it didn't make me have initial reactions of like, oh, he means he's going to trade Jokic. Like I heard that and I was just kind of like, that was weird. And then I saw the reaction on social media and people were like outraged about it. And now that I think about it, I'm like, well, that did kind of sound pretty weird, huh? But what was your guys' thoughts when you first heard that quote, saw that quote?
Yeah, it was definitely something you do not want to hear. I mean, it's like if you're in a relationship and you're talking to your significant other, and it's like, yeah, if we break up, like you would never say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's not even in your plan.
Putting that idea out there, I just feel like is like
I said it last show as a joke, and it sounded wrong.
And Matt was like, "Yeah, let's not even put that out there.
No, let's not even. We can't
exactly
say that.
But like,
can't say that.
Matt did say that. Matt said that. Yeah,
exactly. And so like, obviously, he didn't mean to say something like that, but it was weird because the question that was asked had nothing to do with Jokic, his future. Like, how could Jokic's legacy endeavor be affected by the second apron?
Why would an injury impact whether you trade him?
Exactly. And I mean, he didn't use Jokic's name exactly. Right. He said number 15. Right. So indirectly, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I think we're kind of everybody's, including Twitter's, like studying too hard into this. But I don't know. It is just like
it's like the panic button, man. It's like shouting fire in a crowded ball arena. Like, bro, don't even put that out there. Don't even say that.
What's the scene in the movie where it goes? They're on a plane. I can't remember what movie this is. And they're on a plane.
Oh, is it Ben Stiller?
Meet the Parents.
Meet the Parents. Yeah.
And he goes, "It's not like there's a bomb in here.
It's not like I said I have a bomb."
He's on a plane.
He's on a plane.
Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's making its rounds.
It's one of those. I think it's one of those things, like you touched on, Cam. I think Josh would 100% take that back. No questions asked if he could do it again. I think him saying number 15 was like his way of, in the moment, trying not to make it a bigger deal. He could have said Jokic's name 100%. But I think in the moment, you watch his facial expression. I mean, he just he totally shifts and is
Yeah.
like kind of like, I think he felt the tension in the room of the previous sentence and what he's about to say. And everybody knows at that point when you say, I never want to have to contemplate. And the only thing that Nuggets fans are thinking of never having to contemplate is getting rid of or trading Jokic. So when people hear
Right.
that and then you pause and then you say number 15, I mean everybody in that room knew what he was going to say. So
Yeah.
you just can't say, like, as a PR situation,
It's a PR disaster.
you can't say
It's-
that. There's
I read the comments of the Instagram, the TikTok, and people are just like, "Why would you trade Jokic?" Or, "Oh my God, it's so done. Like he's so done with them." Like people just being like, "Oh yeah, he's leaving now." It's like, all right, chill out. Like,
And
there's a side that's making this bigger than it is. That I'm like, all right, hold on. Like this bad word choice, yeah, but let's not go too far.
I think like it was never like the idea of us trading Jokic never became a reality until the Luka Doncic trade.
Yes.
And I think that's why everybody's blown up on social media because of it.
Yeah, because like it's possible.
It's possible. And realistically, I never thought that was a possibility until that happened.
Yep.
Exactly.
I totally agree with you. That's the reaction, because we've seen it happen before, like you said, is when they say trade and your best player, everybody thinks of Luka. Everybody thinks of the Maverick situation. And that had no warning, RAP Mavs fans, but like when you say
they're getting flagged. They're getting flagged tomorrow. I think they'll suffice.
Yeah, that's true. Got your Cooper flag jersey.
But still, no, point stands. Absolutely. Like that was their guy, and they just lost him. Yeah. No,
I mean, like a player, like the greatest player on earth right now is Nikola Jokic, and I think everybody knows that.
No question.
Yeah.
Shay said it was him today, which is fine. I actually don't mind. Dude, Shay's like he's a good dude, bro. Like
he is.
I keep seeing videos of him, and like he seems like such a chill guy. Like very nice, very good to the community and stuff. And I'm like, God damn it! I want to hate you, bro. I want to hate you. I want to hate the Thunder team, but they're full of guys that are kind of chill.
I agree.
Sometimes corny, but yeah, chill. Yeah, wild quote. I don't think that's even a possibility. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he would take back that quote in a second if he could. But the fact that it's out there is always going to be out there, and it's the first most concerning thing that we've seen or heard in Jokic's tenure with the Nuggets, just because he's probably, in his mind, he probably slipped into business thought and was just like, hey, sports are a business. I know we have the best player on the planet, but we also have a franchise to run past his time here. So I wonder if like subconsciously it was like, I shouldn't have said that, but I was kind of meaning that this is with these CBA, second apron concerns, there's sometimes you have to do crazy stuff, but I don't think that's going to happen.
How he was just trying to emphasize how risky,
how risky big the moment it is. Yeah.
But he could have just said that. He could have just left it.
No, I know. He could have said, we don't want it to back us in a corner. We don't want it to hamstring us.
We don't really want to get to a place where we have to make a really tough decision, and leave it at that. And you just, but you can't say trade your best player. That's essentially what I don't care if he used number 15. You put it out there.
Yeah, it's out there. It's out there. It's going to exist. I am going to guess though that we are not concerned about this. Now there was the question about Jokic's contract extension. We learned from, if you listen to DMVR today, that if he signs this one July 8th, that's actually going to be less money and a shorter deal. If he waits a year, it'll be more money and it'll actually keep him here longer. So if he does not extend on July 8th, don't panic. That's not going to mean that he's gone or that he wants to be done. It means that he could be just waiting for that longer extension. And to that question, people are taking that one a little strangely today too, because he said we are definitely going to offer it to him, but we're going to tell him everything that it means. And he said, I don't know if he will sign it. Because truthfully, how can he just speak for the guy? He can't just say like, oh yeah, Jokic's going to sign it. He doesn't know that yet. He's got to lay it all out for him, figure out what's best for his family, whatever the case is. So that was another one that was making its rounds today that I was kind of like, guys, I don't think he meant like, oh, like that our relationship with Jokic is rocky or something. In fact, Jokic probably isn't going to see any of this for months. Hear about it maybe for weeks. I don't know.
Probably.
And it'll be like, oh, okay. He's like, oh, I understand. Like, I guarantee he doesn't care as much as the fans are going to care about what was said today.
Well, he also has he also, like every NBA player, he also has an agent that will go over it with him, and
the agent will talk to the Nuggets representatives too, and be like, what was that? And they'll be like, oh, that was, we're all good. Like, but it's not even,
And I think Jokic is, sorry, Pat, I'm just gonna say one more. I don't think Jokic's I don't think his relationship with the Nuggets front office or their coaching staff is spoiled in any way, shape, or form. If you look at the way that he handled the Malone and Booth firings, he was like, it's business.
It's a business. I understand.
It's a business. I understand. So when you have a guy that has a mindset like that, it's not great that you let stuff slip in a press conference situation, but you also know the guy.
He's not James Harden.
No, but
he's not. Yeah,
smart enough to take that and be like, yeah,
right.
It's
he's not some of these superstars we've seen that would take that rough and run with it wild and be like, oh, I'm starting to get shaky here. I just don't think that's how Jokic operates. He's not your usual superstar.
Played in Serbia, brother.
brother.
Well, and Josh mentioned in that presser, he said something along the lines of like, this is something that we offer to like all players, like the timing of an extension, like what like the best benefit financially for this player. Jokic,
they've done right by their guys. Yeah,
exactly. Like
they've done right by their players.
Exactly. It's just a matter of timing. Like, what's the best value when you accept the extension on this date versus this date? Like, obviously, the guy's going to take the better offer.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So we're gonna close it up here. I have a few more notes from the press conference. If there's anything that strikes you as interesting, we could talk about it. But I just had some quick notes that I wrote from it. Kroenke says Tenzer and Wallace will both be on the phones with other teams. Kind of mentioned that earlier. Wallace wants to give Adelman more tools to capitalize on his creativity. Emphasizes adding more depth. Mentioned that earlier. Tenzer says Denver's prepared for the draft. He did say that and will be aggressive to grab a player if they like him. Which would be interesting. I don't expect the Nuggets to do anything tomorrow night. I certainly don't think they need to go get a second round pick or something. That doesn't seem like the kind of timeline they're on right now. But anyways, no pressure on Deron Holmes coming back, but he did say he'll be playing in Summer League. Deron Holmes was there, by the way, as well as P. Watt and I think PJ Hall were there as well. This was a note that was said. Denver needs to hit the ground running for Game 1 next year. I think they're kind of just understanding that they need. I don't know. I like some of the things that I heard today from that standpoint. The Kroenke stuff was a little bit concerning, but and then also Pat mentioned this. Tenzer said it's healthy to disagree and believes that they have great guys to navigate that kind of disagreement and stuff, and also that he's comfortable in his role. So those were really just some of the points from the press conference. I think we gave it a real good lowdown and everything. Well, anyways, any more thoughts on that? I mean, well, I guess we're going to see. Pat and I, Kennedy and Evan will be out for the next week and a half or so, all heading to Chicago area for a wedding. Matt's going to be doing the show alone next week. No, I'm just kidding.
No,
we're doing solo, super producer solo show. Matty Ice is going to be just getting on and telling you guys life advice.
No, you don't want to
talking about dude wipes and shit. No pun intended.
It's just going to be a show.
Podium products.
It's just going to be a show filled with ads.
It's just Matt for 30 minutes reading made-up ads that ChatGPT put together.
Yeah, and then send those out to our potential sponsors, see if they'll give us a deal.
This is what it would look like. We only have 20 subscribers, but
I shouted you out 12 times on our last podcast.
It was just all reading ads.
Reading ads.
Yeah. So we're gonna be out. Yeah. Early July. A lot's gonna happen. I'm sure there's gonna be trades, free agent stuff, draft stuff. Maybe the Nuggets are involved. Probably not. But we'll be here on our daily shows to kind of recap some of those things.
If you bring,
and maybe the Nuggets would have done something.
We can always hop on remote.
You could always hop on remote.
Good.
I am bringing my computer, not my
emergency pod.
We could. Hey, we'll have equipment if needed, and if an emergency happens, we'll try our best to figure something out. If a Porter deal, whatever, like if something happens that really concerns the Nuggets, we're gonna try our best to get on that night or something and do a pod. I'll say that.
Yeah, won't
But,
have any
yeah.
fancy mics. We'll just be using the AirPod.
A 15,
Microphone.
20-minute reaction of whatever that is. AirPod, microphone, yeah. Well, anything else? I mean, what else is going on? Nothing.
Cooper Flag, I got the jersey in the background. He's going overall number 1
Lewis
tomorrow.
Dallas Maverick. Yep. That'll be good. All right. Well, that's going to do it. You guys have a good one. And go follow us on our socials, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. We're on Spotify and Apple as well. Gentlemen, that was fun. Good speaking with you.
Good one.
Matt, hit that
Yes,
outro.
sir.
Cheers.
Cheers.